I'm going to go ahead and kick it off. And then we might cover some of that too. So, hey everybody, it's Eric Steele with Steel Wheels and Steel Media and whatnot. And I have the good fortune of having a friend of mine that I've worked with for at least 15 years, something like that. Pretty close to that, at least, I think. The first thing I ever did for you was with Elevate Outdoors, or not Elevate Outdoors, Hooked on the Outdoors. And that was a long time ago. Anyway, Doug Schnitzspahn is with me today, and Doug is the editor-in-chief of Elevate Outdoors, and also the Outdoor Retailer Show Daily. Both are really great publications that cover the outdoor market industry, one from the business-to-business side and one from the business-to-consumer side. So Doug, thanks for taking some time out with me today. I've got a bunch of questions for you about what you think is going to happen with the market, and what are your plans as the editor with the Outdoor Retailer Show Daily. How do you plan on responding to this disruption? So let me hand it off to you. And first off, how are you doing in isolation?
Well, I've added some facial hair. It's been the big thing, but I'm extremely privileged and lucky to live in a beautiful spot in Boulder and have trails out the door, bike trails out the door. So we've been able to do some responsible recreation with masks on, biking, hiking, stuff like that. And also really lucky to have an amazing family, 2 great teenagers who are pretty self-motivated and love to cook and love to watch movies, and we all like spending time together. So we've been lucky, I think, in that way.
Yeah, I've heard of this COVID divorce. Have you heard about this?
Yeah, no, it's, as I said, it's really nice. And I think what's interesting is, we spend a lot of time with our family camping and car camping, traveling, going on adventures, skiing, everything. And I think that experience of being together and working together is not only really good just for your family in general, but it's proved amazing in this time too.
Yeah, I'm certainly enjoying having my wife here instead of having her in New Jersey. So this is good. I don't mind. It's nice to be able to hang out, and I don't mind being home. But I do recognize that a lot of people, this lifestyle is not working for, and I totally get it. I also, which kind of an interesting thing with the disability, I don't do a whole lot of crazy trail running or anything like that, and I've had to really kind of reserve. I believe that people use the outdoors as a relief valve, as a pressure relief valve for stress. And so even as much as you want people to stay at home, you got to get some sunshine. You got to get out and walk around, otherwise you're going to go stir crazy, right?
Yeah, I think this is one of the big opportunities the outdoor industry has too, is more and more people who haven't really been, in a certain way, even though we're a huge $800 billion industry, it's also a niche in a way, outdoors. People don't think of themselves as part of the outdoors lifestyle. And I think we're going to see more and more people wanting to get outdoors and redefining what outdoors is to them, whether it's hikes or walks or spending time at the park, spending time outside in their own house where you use outdoor gear. I think people are doing a lot more of that and seeing the benefit of that. So that's something that is going to be great long-term, I think, for the industry. I think right now, one problem is, it's really hard for people to follow rules and stay inside and be responsible. You see a lot of people on the trails who are doing the right thing, wearing masks, staying apart, and you see a lot of people who seem absolutely ignorant to what they should be doing. So right now I see that as a challenge, but long-term I see it as a great benefit. And I think, to go along with that too, I also have to say again that, those of us who do have these opportunities right out our door are unbelievably lucky and privileged that we can do that. And some of that's come from making life choices. If you want to live in a mountain town or pay more money, have a smaller house like I do in Boulder to be near trails. There's a lot of people who don't have these opportunities at all, especially right now because they're stuck inside. So it's really important to think about them too, and ways that they can enjoy the outdoors as soon as restrictions change a little bit.
What have you heard anything about the potential restriction of leisure air travel?
I have not. No.
I have.
Huh.
Well,
private plane.
See, there's a few economic things going on with that, and I kind of want to pick your brain about a few other things, but it looks like it might happen, and the reason is that business class subsidizes economy already. With 15% of the planes flying now that were flying before, there's going to be a real scaling back. They're going to have to work a lot harder to make the numbers work at that level. Obviously, a lot of airlines are going to go out of business, but they're still going to, the main routes are still going to be open. You're still going to be able to get where you need to go. It's just going to be a lot more expensive. And I kind of see the future with almost entirely business class flights, front to back, and no more economy class, no more coach. They just don't have that option of cramming that many people right next to each other anymore. It's not a workable solution from any possible angle. There's no way we're ever going to know every virus that's coming out. Now I'm talking, and I would want to interview you, but there's no way we're going to know every virus coming out ahead of time. So we're not going to be able to screen for stuff for everything. And people still need to get from, city to city. So there is talk of the potential of restricting leisure air travel.
I mean, I could see that happening for a short amount of time. I mean, I think what's unprecedented and really crazy about what's going now is it's not something, it's not something that's systemic. It's not like the housing crisis you mentioned before, which was cause of, comeuppance for putting out bad loans out there, right? It's not something that's necessarily a supply and demand cause either. What we're seeing is an imposed change in economics, right? And it's going to be temporary. I mean, if it's a year, that's going to be really rough, obviously, too. But those dynamics will change again. So I think instead of just seeing one thing happen, there might be a time where there's only business costs, right? But I think instead of seeing one thing happen all across the board forever, you're going to see a lot of dynamic changes and things changing again. You see people going out of business, but then I think when opportunities arise, you'll see people going into business again and things happening, because the way economies and economics work, I kind of think is like water. If you let water go somewhere, it's going to find a way to run downhill. It's going to find a way to get out. It's going to find a way to happen. And I think economies are the same way. Example I saw the other day on our street here in Boulder, all of a sudden the Black Cat Farms food truck showed up on the street, and people were running out to it like it was the ice cream truck. It was amazing. Like my neighbor was like, the farm truck is here. He came running down, and all these people came down. The truck was super busy. They were selling out of stuff. So those guys found a way, like water, to find a way out of where they were impinged and got out and took advantage of people being home in that economy. So I think you'll see more and more of that things keep change as people adapt to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And to back up, because I just started recording, we'd already talked a little bit before I started recording. What I had mentioned initially was that this is the biggest disruption I have ever seen. It's bigger than the disruption that happened 20 years ago. It's bigger than the housing disruption. And to your point about the disruption now, it is actually a twofold disruption, because it's not just a huge reduction in demand that is totally sending everything spiraling, and also a shift of demand to other channels that's sending everything, that's the huge disruptor. But there's also what I had mentioned before, the shenanigans that had happened in the housing market actually never went away. They just transferred over to commercial bonds. I didn't know any of this. But when they talk about how great our economy is, the fact is it's already supercharged with commercial bonds and easy credit. And so there's going to be a huge contraction. Honestly, where the stock market is now, I honestly feel that's a good number. That's a reasonable number. That 28 number, that 27 number we were at before this all happened, that was an unrealistic number. So yeah, I do think we're in the midst of, and probably in the beginning of, really the biggest disruption we've ever seen, because J. Crew just announced bankruptcy. Have you heard about any outdoor retailer brands that have thrown in the towel?
I haven't heard of brands. I've heard of individual retailers. One that we covered in Outdoor Retailer magazine, Sawyer Outdoors, which was this beautiful, amazing shop in Santa Cruz. Sounds like she's going out of business and looking for new work. And that's the worst thing, is just to see people who have put their lives into these creative entrepreneurial shops lose their business for no reason of their own. It's not,
Right.
and really for no reason of the market. It's just an imposed bizarre catastrophe.
Certainly. So let's assume there's going to be less travel. Maybe not complete restriction on air travel, but certainly less people are going to be flying. How do you think that's going to impact? And there'll be more regional travel. How do you, this staycation thing, that's kind of bread and butter for Elevation Outdoors. It's also bread and butter for the outdoor industry, because camping and doing things close to home, obviously travel, a lot of the clothing you can take anywhere, but there are a lot of products at the show that are really quite useful for when you're on the trail or when you're at the campsite, right?
No, absolutely. I was saying that before. I mean, I think it's amazing that, all these people are going to have a lot more time to explore close to home and explore what's near. In Boulder, where I live, I've found so many new places I haven't gone to, where it's amazing that we have these trails right outside. We don't always check out all the different places they go. And eventually, yeah, you want, outdoor gear. And I think the outdoor appeal is really strong there. I mean, that goes for anywhere too. Like, I grew up in a little town called Little Silver, New Jersey, and there's marsh there. There's little woods there you can check out. There's local parks, and maybe people spend a lot more time in those places and not be, consuming as much, traveling all over the world. It's certainly nice right now to go outside and you can feel the difference of no air traffic. All that said too, I mean, I also think that travel and world travel is one of the best things people can do. I think it's great for people to understand better, understand other cultures better, for us to all get along. I think there's nothing better you can do than travel. And a lot of people who are xenophobic or are afraid of other cultures just haven't spent time in those other cultures, and all that travel will do them a lot good.
They haven't been exposed to the xenophobia that exists in other places.
Yeah, exactly.
I just spent a few weeks in Croatia and Slovenia, or like a week. Right. So xenophobia didn't go away. It's just a different flavor. All right.
Right.
Right. So we're talking about opportunity, right? Because this disruption, it's negative, right? Like, people who have put their lives into a certain business model that no longer functions with the way our society and our economy and the restrictions on movement have changed so much. And then they were already under attack from Amazon, right? So there's that, but there's another way to look at this, which is, where are the opportunities, right? I mean,
absolutely, yeah.
So we talked a little bit about some of the opportunities that are present on the consumer side. Can we talk a little bit about the opportunities that are present on the trade show side? And this is switching gears from more the Elevate Outdoors and also kind of representing the product stuff of the daily. Now we'll talk mostly about the daily specifically and serving the market, the trade show market. There's something that happens at trade shows. I tried to do the virtual design center with Kenji in 2011, and it fell right on its face. No, I mean, some of it was that there just wasn't the support for it by the time it launched. That's a separate issue, but there really just wasn't engagement in it. Even if there was support for it, it'd have been hard to make an argument for another one.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, there's a lot to dig into there. Obviously, I mean, maybe talk about what we're doing now is I've done the Outdoor Retailer Daily for the past 3 or 4 shows. I've worked on it a long time, and this time with folks at Head High Media, we've been producing it for the show. Daily publication that comes out every day. Now we're doing a weekly magazine to take the place of the daily to keep people informed. I'll have the same kind of information, has a chance for people to show their products, has news of what's going on, news of retailers, stories from people, and has resources and toolkits to try to help retailers or brands in trouble. Like for the first one, we've got Jim Thompson, who way back was president of VF. He is explaining to people how to get loans because he's working with the California Small Business Association, and so stuff like that. And just to get that out of the way on what I was working on in that. Secondly, with the trade show, yeah, I mean, I think the trade show has always been evolving and always has pressure on it from whatever time. the biggest value, and I think the biggest value everyone still wants out of it, is that gathering of the entire community coming together to talk about conservation, to talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, to talk about sales techniques, all that. I mean, I think it's that gathering that's really valuable. And we can do that online, sure, like we're doing now, but there's still a lot of value to big gatherings of people, and they will happen again in the future, I think. I also think that, the big brands who've stuck with the show, it's been really good for them. You look at like the North Face and what they're doing, what they did at last show, when they were using it as a big platform for education and marketing and being a part of the industry was great. But the people who benefit the most from the trade show are the ones I worry about the most. And what makes the industry most viable isn't really big brands, but it's all these small brands, like the brands you see in Venture Out, or people have the crazy ideas. They bring them to the show. They wouldn't get much attention otherwise, and they still get that attention. That's the real value. And those are the people who I'm afraid of getting pushed off to the side in this, losing that opportunity, right? Likewise, I think at the trade shows recently, we've seen a lot of advocates come forth for underrepresented populations of all sorts, and they get the chance to really be in front of the industry and talk to so many people and make connect. I really would hate to lose all of that, which is so important for those smaller voices and smaller brands to be a part of the bigger whole.
Yeah, I definitely see some challenges. The funny thing is, I'm, and I think you're this way too. I tend to want to look for opportunity, and not just like how well things are going to contract or they're going to go a different direction. And it seems to me like you're in a perfect position to leverage the technology that we have now with these conferences and whatnot, with the platform that you already have publishing the daily, to keep people connected while we miss the summer show, right?
Absolutely. And that's what we're doing with the weekly is, keeping those voices in there, keeping those small products and new brands in there. So it's a 20-page magazine every week. And when you open it up, you're going to be able to see a whole wide range of brands in there. You're going to hear different voices from all over the industry, which is really great. And we're working on getting audio components in there too, so you actually will hear those voices, which is cool. So yeah, we have that opportunity to stay really connected and make the show feel connected and still be there, even though it's not around. The other thing we're doing is in the resources section of the magazine, we're going to have some kind of expert, like we have this guy, the retail doctor is coming up next week in week 2 of the weekly. And then that's going to be connected to a webinar presentation that'll take place every Thursday as well. And the show has been putting out these webinars every week that have been fantastic, full of amazing information. So it's really, really an opportunity, again, to get that out there and stay connected, especially when people are stuck at home. I mean, they don't have a whole lot of, I think a lot of other times with media, especially digital media, people have more chance to ignore it because they're running all over the place. And now people are thirsty for information or new information.
Awesome. Have you done, or are you looking at doing some sort of coverage of the unique responses that different people from the outdoor industry have had towards this virus?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's in every issue. In this first one coming up, we've got, Steve Cohen from MasterFit.
That's a boot fit company, right?
Yeah, Steve Cohen. He used to be an editor at Ski Magazine. He tells a story in this latest one, I don't want to give it away too much, but about basically being pretty early in on importing face masks from China and getting into the face mask business, so that his shoe insole companies pivoted to being a PPE company. Likewise, Drew Simmons, who a lot of people know in the industry from Pale Morning Media, has a story that's connected to his podcast about Vermont Glove, which is an old local family business in Vermont, and how those guys are getting into the PPE business as well, to stay alive, to keep it going. I think a lot of people are doing that. The big question with all that is, of course, 2 things: is how long are we going to need all the PPE for, and how long before large brands just kind of steamroll these smaller businesses.
There's an inevitable piece of that. But thank goodness, OR is kind of like a mousetrap show, right? It's a show with a good idea, with a new mousetrap and a few dollars and some protecting of your IP. You can come in and actually start a business or be purchased by another business, and
exactly, yeah,
so many times.
Yeah, I mean, some of the classic businesses, I remember seeing that too, just going to the show for years. I mean, I remember seeing Keen when it was just like Martin Keen standing there with the first show, and then the next show it was a bigger booth, and now it's a massive company. Cloudveil, those guys were the same way when they were just like a little shop in the ballroom with Sully there. When they first brought in kind of soft shell material with Scholler that no one's seen before, they turned into big, I mean, no
Yeah.
longer rent, but just seeing those small ideas really can evolve into bigger brands. It's great to see.
Okay, well, wrapping up, what anything cool you've got to tell me about what's coming up in the future for you? And then when do you think we're going to get back to trade shows?
I mean, I hope we get back to trade shows. I hope we kind of get back to trade shows in January for the January show, but obviously there's just no knowing. There's so many variables right now. I think people are going to want it really badly. I mean, I think after being stuck in with it, I know I've got teenagers and they're just sad and they're dying because they can't get together with their friends. My son's just sad he can't go have ice cream with his friends. So I think it's a natural need for people to get together. So as soon as it's allowed, as soon as it's safe, I think people are going to want to do it and need to do it. It's just a human need. And maybe we'll see more value in these big gatherings, where people before were a little more cynical, maybe about a trade show. Maybe they're going to be like, wow, I need to go. I need to see people. I need to be with people again. I mean, I think we'll get to that point of healing at some point. As far as future for me, I think like everyone else, we're all just trying to pivot as fast as we can and work on new stuff as fast as we can and hope we can hold it together and find ways to get through this. With the weekly, I think we put out a really great first issue. It's going to be live on Tuesday morning, which I think is the same time this comes out, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I'll be
And,
released tomorrow.
I think people are going to really, I'm excited about what's in there and excited about what's going to be in there every week. I'm really excited about people telling their stories. I love that aspect of it. And I think the biggest thing we're really focusing on in here too is making sure that we give businesses, information that's going to help them. We don't want to just put out a pretty magazine or put out a magazine that's, just for the sake of putting it out. Hopefully it's going to be a tool for people and really help them. And at the same time, give them an escape or a way away or a way to feel connected and be with community as well. So I'm really excited to see the reception of that weekly getting, especially as it is kind of the lifeline that the show has with the whole community right now. And these webinars, once these webinars get launched that are linked to the weekly, that's really going to be great too. I'm also really excited about the latest issue of Elevation Outdoors, this May issue that's coming out, where the same thing, May was our festival guide. So that whole issue got
Shot.
paper. Weren't going to be any festivals, obviously. And as you know, I mean, planning a magazine is hard. You plan a little ways ahead for a print magazine. But we pivoted on the whole thing and made it this resilience issue. And our main story, our cover story, is kind of positive. I guess some people might not like it. It's Timmy O'Neill breaking through this paper wall, the shot we got him at OR that worked really well, and talking about resilience and outdoor.
Wow. That's finally with what Timmy's been through recently.
Well, and then I worked with Timmy. It was great. I've worked with Timmy for years, and I love Timmy as a person and a friend, and I love working with him. He's done so much more than just, people think of him as a climbing comedian or whatever, but he's done so much more advocacy, working with Eric Weinmeier and working, on cataract surgeries in third world countries.
Paradox.
Paradox Sports. He's done all this cool stuff. So anyway, as you and some people might know, he was down in Patagonia working on a film and had a stroke right as the COVID-19 crisis was starting to happen, lockdown was starting to happen. And he survived the stroke pretty well and came back. So he's got this great story about that resilience and that larger power in there. That's great. Danny Reyes Acosta, who has been living in her van for a long time, wrote a story about kind of giving up on van life at this time and what that means. And also sort of the privilege she sees to be able to live in a van. And it's a beautiful piece. And Corinna Lucier, who runs Salto Coffee Works up in Nederland, Colorado, wrote about, the heartbreak and difficulties of owning a small business right now in a mountain town. So I'm really excited about this issue of Elevation Outdoors, as I always am. I always love people to get this stuff we work on, and I can't wait for people to see this issue and read it, and read these stories of resilience and reality. And I think the magazine speaks to what's going on right now, which isn't an easy thing to do with a small magazine and small staff to put it together that quickly. So I'm really proud of that.
Yeah, I'm impressed with that too. Well, I really enjoy talking with you. I always enjoy talking with you, Doug. So it's inevitable that I would have like 2 more questions pop up just before we take off. So
Sure.
if you don't mind, indulge me. First, you were kind of like instrumental for me actually having a journalist career at all, you call it a career, whatnot. And thought I'd ask you if you were to tell anybody who is up and coming that wanted to be a journalist, not just an advocate or an influencer, but an actual journalist, what would you tell them?
You know, I think there's a lot of opportunity now. There's a lot more opportunity than like when I first had my first magazine internship in 1990, and you had to have a job at a magazine, and most of them were in New York. You could only do it that one way. But now I think there really is a lot more opportunity to piece together a journalism career. And I think there's also a lot of opportunity to put out really quality journalism right now. It's unbelievable how many people are willing to read and believe such garbage, and how much garbage is out there that's nothing but clickbait, fake news, badly reported news. I think that people are really willing to listen to stuff that's not well reported and not good journalism, just because it resonates with what they want to believe. And I think that is a disease on both the left and right side of the political spectrum right now. So I think as a journalist right now, you have a lot of opportunity to really put across quality work. And I think that will stand out in a sea of a lot of garbage.
Excellent. Good answer. I like that. So basically, there's a lot of opportunity. Somebody who's a journalist, what would they, or if they want to be a journalist and they wanted to approach a publication, you still think it's important to get your word in print and have byline?
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I mean, print still, and it'll be interesting to see how this whole crisis, if it makes print even more powerful, since people are getting print magazines at home and excited about them. I think print still has a legitimacy that's nowhere else. At the same time, you also get more eyeballs on stuff if it's digitally. So I think both platforms are good, but I think it's still important to get that. Everyone wants that print byline. Still, it still has value to it. Still has cachet.
It certainly does. All right, last question. What's your favorite cheese?
My favorite cheese is Gorgonzola. I actually have 2 things. We have a recipe we're going to do with some Gorgonzola, and I've got some Gorgonzola in the fridge right now. Actually, 2 things of it. I was worried we didn't have enough. And I got to love Gorgonzola when I lived in Rome, and Thursdays are gnocchi day in Rome, and you have fresh gnocchi. Mm-hmm. I lived on the University of Washington. I was teaching with the University of Washington, and they have a place on the Campo dei Fiori in the middle of Rome. And I used to go to the restaurants on Thursday and get gnocchi with Gorgonzola sauce. And it is, good God, it is the most incredible thing you will ever eat.
It's a lot more approachable than blue cheese, that's for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, thanks for your time. I wound up developing a real love for Gouda when I was in the Netherlands in March.
Fantastic. Yeah.
They put it in everything. I think they even have it with the cigarettes. I'm not sure.
I love cheese. I've been vegetarian for 20 years, and I cook a lot of vegan food, but I do love good cheese, especially European cheese.
Take care of yourself. Wish Rada well.
All right. Good to talk to you, Eric. Thanks so much.
Yeah, my pleasure. And I'll be in touch.
All right. Sounds great. Bye.